Hello, and welcome to another week of Central Reads, our 2024 Bible reading plan. This week is sort of an interesting week in our plan because the first 4 days are different chapters from the book of Proverbs, and then we're going to read a short little letter from Paul to a guy named Titus, and then we're going to close the week on Saturday with 2 different Psalms, one of which I talked about yesterday in the sermon. But I just want to cast a little bit of light on some of these Proverbs, because I think it's the first time, no, it's not the first time, but it's the first extended time we've talked about Proverbs. These ones that we'll be reading in 10 through 13 are wise sayings from King Solomon. And the Proverbs are interesting because there's, in chapter 10, for instance, there's 32 different verses, which means that there's 32 different Proverbs. And the thing with Proverbs is each verse will say something, and then on the next line it will contrast what it just said, right? So a child who gathers in summer is prudent, but a child who sleeps in harvest brings shame. And so it's a contrast of these two things. And so there's really like 32 or so different ideas per chapter. And the thing with Proverbs that I personally have found is if I read all of it, I won't remember any of it. And there's just too many things to focus on or think about, and you just kind of can't. So what I'll do is I'll read a chapter, and then I'll pick one single proverb to meditate on and think about and kind of take with me, because you can't take 32 or 33 things with you. So just take one. And so, for instance, from verse 10, from chapter 10, this is verse 8. The wise of heart will heed commandments, but a babbling fool will come to ruin. And so maybe that's the one I would focus on for that day, or maybe even that week even, and just think about, am I wise of heart? Do I listen to commandments, right? When I read scripture, when I look at what Jesus has to say, the commands that Jesus says, right? Do I listen to them? Do I allow those commands to actually change my behavior and form what I think and what I do? Or, the contrast is, do I talk over it? Do I just talk myself in circles? Do I talk around them? Do I, Jesus says love your enemies, right? And pray for those who persecute you. Well, do I just talk over that? Do I say, when Jesus said love your enemies, what he really means is X, Y, and Z? Or do I just talk so much and say a bunch of things that I'm never listening to what Jesus has to say, to what God has to say to me? And so, you can meditate and really think on and kind of work through any of these Proverbs. And so I want to encourage you that as we're reading some of these Proverbs, pick one a day and just kind of think about it and reflect on it, maybe write it down so you can remember it. Because when it comes to taking in the Proverbs and letting them sort of speak to us, that's, I think, how we're going to do it. I want to encourage you to watch the Bible Project videos on Proverbs. If you want to listen to the Bible Project podcast on Proverbs, their stuff on the wisdom literature, Proverbs is wisdom literature. If you want to check out their stuff on wisdom literature, it is excellent. Later in the week, make sure to watch the little video on Titus as well, because there's really good stuff in there. But, all right, I hope you have a great Memorial Day today and a happy week of reading. Take care.